Hey gang, using the promo code MTGMudsta, one word, all caps, will get you 10% off orders of $10 or more at Flipside Gaming, Original Magic Art, and orders of singles at Multizone. If they don't have what you're looking for, you could check out TCG Player and use my affiliate link to help support the channel. Looking for a way to bling out your deck and not spend a fortune? Alter Sleaze can help with that, and you can help with the channel at the same time by using my affiliate link. Or, if you're looking to join the Goblin Gang, you can always support me through Patreon. Hey gang, and welcome back. Today's game is another Jersey Boys special, and unfortunately Frank is here. First up we have Harry playing Sydri, keeping Vault of Whispers, Temple of Deceit, Krark Clan Ironworks, Scrap Trawler, Phyrexian Metamorph, Auriok Salvagers, and a Mycosynth Wellspring. Matt is playing his Korvold deck, keeping a Guttural Response, Blood Artist, Mana Crypt, Elves of Deep Shadow, Exotic Orchard, Mountain, and Mana Confluence. Trevor is playing his Atraxa Super Friends, keeping Cleansing Nova, Everflowing Chalice, Tamiyo Field Researcher, Wooded Bastion, Opulent Palace, Plains, and Austere Command. Frank is playing Purphoros, keeping Impact Tremors, Myriad Landscape, Carekeep, Seasoned Pyromancer, Expedition Map, Blasphemous Act, and a Mountain. Trevor wins the die roll and starts us off. Trevor plays a tapped Opulent Palace. Harry plays a tapped Temple of Deceit, scrying 1. Matt plays a Mana Confluence, and then casts a Mana Crypt. He then takes 1 from the Confluence to cast Elves of Deep Shadow. Frank plays a land, and he casts his Sol Ring. He taps the Sol Ring for Expedition Map, and passes. Trevor plays a Mystic Gate Expedition, and kicks the Everflowing Chalice once. Harry plays a Vault of Whispers, and casts a Mycosynth Wellspring. It enters, and he goes to find a basic to put to hand. Matt plays a Mountain, and remembers to roll for his Crypt. He loses the roll, and takes 3, and then passes turn. Frank also plays a Mountain, and is able to drop a turn 2 Purphoros, which is pretty frightening. Trevor plays a Wooded Bastion, and casts Tamiyo Field Researcher. He downticks her, tapping down the Mana Crypt and the Sol Ring, and they won't untap during their controller's next untap step. Harry plays a Snow-Covered Plains, and casts Sydri. He then passes to Matt. Matt rolls for his currently defunct Mana Crypt, and loses the roll, taking 3. He draws for turn, and plays an Exotic Orchard. He then casts his own Sol Ring, and then takes 2, 1 from the Elves and 1 from the Confluence as he casts Korvold. The dragon enters, and Matt sacrifices the Mana Crypt, drawing a card from Korvold and putting a +1/+1 counter onto his commander. Matt then passes. Frank draws and plays a tap Myriad Landscape. Despite his Sol Ring being tapped until next turn, he's still able to cast Impact Tremors though, and passes. Trevor plays a Plains and casts a Cleansing Nova. He wipes the board of creatures, and passes to Harry. Harry casts a Nile Spellbomb, and then a Scrabbling Claws. He plays a tapped Irrigated Farmlands, and passes to Matt. At the end of turn, Matt casts Force of Vigor, blowing up Impact Tremors and the Everflowing Chalice by exiling a card from his hand. Matt plays a tapped Overgrown Tomb, and casts a Blood Artist, passing. Frank plays a Mountain, and taps 3 for a Seasoned Pyromancer. It enters, and has Frank discarding Seething Song and Blasphemous Act. He then draws 2 cards and makes 2 elementals, which has Purphoros dealing a total of 6 to his opponents before he passes to Trevor. Trevor plays a Corehaven Expedition, and taps 5 for Nissa Vital Force. He upticks her, animating a land, and then upticks Tamiyo, and targets the land and the Seasoned Pyromancer. He then passes, and at the end of turn, Harry activates the clause to have Matt exile a card from his graveyard. Harry plays a Snow-Covered Swamp and casts a Scrap Trawler. He then drops Urza's Bauble and cracks it. He looks at a card from Matt's hand and gets a delayed draw. He then sacrifices the claw, which has him drawing a card, and the Trawler brings back the Bauble from his yard. He then sacks the Bauble again, and this time looks at one of Frank's cards and gets another delayed draw trigger. Harry then passes, drawing 2 on Matt's upkeep. Matt plays a Vexing Shusher, and Frank cracks his landscape to go and find 2 mountains, and Matt passes to Frank. Frank plays a tap Valakut for his land for turn, and casts a Mog War Marshal. This makes a token as it comes in, which deals 4 to each of Frank's opponents from Purphoros. Frank then goes at Harry with the Seasoned Pyromancer, and Harry takes a hit. Trevor untaps and draws, down-ticking Nissa to get her emblem. He then plays a Forest, drawing as it comes in. He casts an Austere Command and picks the mode to destroy all artifacts and creatures that cost 3 or less. Harry sacrifices the Spell Bomb to exile Trevor's Yard and gets to return a 0-drop to his hand. While Frank cracks his map to go and find a land. The artifacts then get destroyed, with Harry getting to return some more to his hand thanks to the scrap trawler dying and seeing other things die. Matt also gets to drain some opponents with the creatures dying from the Blood Artist, with Frank and Trevor getting 3 while Harry gets 2. Frank also gets a token from the Mog dying, and Purphoros steals 2 to his opponents. And Trevor then upticks Tamiyo and targets the newly made Goblin and passes to Harry. Harry plays Mystic Forge, which despite having put into my Duretti deck a year ago, I have yet to see. He then pays 1 to cast off the top Implement of Improvement, and then plays a Snow-Covered Island. He then recasts Urza's Bauble, and casts an Arkham's Astrolabe, drawing as the artifact enters, and then passes, discarding down to 7. Matt draws, and has to pass. At the end of turn, Frank makes a token with Care Keep, dealing 2 to his opponents with Purphoros. Frank draws and plays a Dwarven Mine, which comes in and makes him a Dwarf token. This has Purphoros dealing another 2, and Frank then casts Firecat Blitz, where X is 5. It says 5 tokens come in, dealing another 10 to each of his opponents. Frank then swings his Hasty Kitty at Tamiyo to take her out, and passes to Trevor. Trevor plays a Murmuring Bosk for his land for turn, and draws from it. He then casts a Demonic Tutor to go find a card to hand, and he passes, while at the end of turn, Harry sacrifices the Implement to gain 2 life and draw a card. Harry then looks at his top card and taps the Mystic Forge, losing 1 and exiling the top card. He looks at his next one and then moves to his turn. Harry plays a Snow-Covered Plains and then casts Ugin off the top. He upticks the Walker to make a Spirit token and exiles his top card. Harry then recasts the Spell Bomb and then plays from hand an Arcbound Ravager. He cracks the Bauble to get a delayed trigger and looks at a card from Frank's hand. He then sacrifices the Spell Bomb and exiles Frank's Yard. Matt untaps and draws. He goes through his yard and then casts a Regrowth to return to hand his Soul Ring before casting it and passing to Frank. Frank plays a Mountain for turn and goes to combat. He swings his tokens at Trevor, and before damage is dealt, activates Purphoros' ability to pump them by +1/+0. This has Trevor taking 5 since one of the tokens is the Carekeep Kobold who actually has no power. Frank then plays a tapped Star Compass and passes. At the end of turn, Trevor casts Pull from Tomorrow, putting 2 into the X, drawing 2 and discarding 1. Trevor plays a Flooded Strand for turn, and then pays for a 3 fairy in his main phase. He downticks the Walker to bounce Purphoros to Frank's hand, and in response, Frank makes a Kobold token, dealing 2 more to his opponents. Oath of Liliana then hits the field, and his opponents sacrifice a creature if they can. Harry sacrifices the Spirit token from Ugin and puts to hand the card he exiled with it. Harry draws, and upticks Ugin to exile another card and make another Spirit. He then casts a Wayfarer's Bauble off the top of his library, and then a Salvaging Station from hand. He taps the station to bring back the Implement, and he then taps the Mystic Forge, losing 1 and exiling a land off the top. Harry then cracks the Bauble to go and find a basic, putting in a Snow-Covered Island. He then looks at his top card, casting a Soul Ring off the top, and passes to Matt. Matt draws for turn, and then casts a Dark Ritual, using the mana and some lands to cast Korvold. The dragon then comes in, and Matt sacrifices his Soul Ring, drawing a card and putting another counter onto his commander. He then plays a Woodland Cemetery, and before passing, casts Assassin's Trophy to blow up Frank's Valakut, taking 1 for the mana confluence. Frank goes to find a basic for the field, passing, and at the end of turn, Trevor cracks his Strand to go and find a Shock land, losing 3. Frank recasts his commander during his turn, and then plays a Mountain. He goes at Trevor again, who blocks one of the tokens with a zombie from the Oath, and before moving to damage, tries to rift Purphoros back to hand. Frank makes another token with the Care Keep while the rift is on the stack, dealing 2 more to his opponents. And this is enough to take Trevor out. Frank then casts a Twin Flame in his post-combat main phase to make another token of a token. This deals 2 more to his opponents. Matt knows he can't do anything at this point, and has to bail anyway, scooping it up. He then passes, and Harry cracks his implement, drawing a card and gaining 2 life. Harry draws, and casts Mishra's Bauble off the top. He then casts Quark Clan Ironworks from his hand, and upticks Ugin, making a spirit token, exiling a card, and then casts Executioner Capsule. He taps the Salvage Station to bring back the implement again, and then casts a Phyrexian Metamorph, which comes in as a copy of the station. Harry then hits Frank with the spirit token, and then moves to crack the bauble. He looks at Frank's top card, and gets a delayed draw. Harry then plays his land for turn, the Temple of Silence, scrying 1 and bottoming it. He then looks at his top card again, casting a Codex Shredder. He taps it to mill Frank for 1, and the Heb hits the bin, and Harry passes. Frank draws, and goes at Harry with everything. Harry blocks the 2/1/1's tokens with a Spirit and the Ravager, and Frank responds once blocking is done by activating Purphoros to pump his creatures by +1/+0. 3 creatures end up dying, with Harry getting 3 triggers from each of the salvaging stations. He responds to them, sacrificing the implement to draw a card and gaining 2 life. He then taps the Metamorph one to bring back the implement, and then untaps the 2 stations. He shortcuts since Frank can't do anything, and brings back his Baubles, Spellbomb, and Claws. Frank then casts Krenko in his post-combat main phase, dealing 2 more as it comes in with Purphoros. Harry then uses his capsule to take out Krenko, and untaps his station as Krenko dies. He then taps them both to bring back the capsule, and wait for his Bauble, and Frank then passes turn. Harry untaps and draws. He casts Liquid Metal Coating from his hand for free in his main phase, and then casts an Ethereum Sculptor off the top. He then casts a Caltrops off the top of his library for free thanks to all the reduction he has, and then Orzhov's Signet for free as well. Harry then upticks Ugin again, and once that's done, casts a Dimir Signet off the top for free. Harry then cracks his Claws to exile a card from Frank's yard and draw a card. The card he drew is Paradoxical Outcome, and Harry targets to return to hand a lot of his little baubles, trinkets, and mana rocks. He then draws 12 from this, and one of them happens to be an Aetherflux Reservoir. At this point he's cast enough spells, and Frank knows how many he has in hand, and they concede the game to Harry, since Frank knows he's dead anyway. Game review time. It's unfortunate that Matt had to go, but I honestly don't think he would have changed all that much other than having to force Harry to gain a bit more life and blast him as well. I think Frank showed what Purphoros does best, which is putting a lot of pressure on people's life total. There weren't even any combat steps, and yet people's life totals were below 20 by turn 6 and 7, which is pretty fast. We did get to see some super friends from Trevor, but unfortunately they didn't do too much outside of Nissa. Her emblem is fantastic, especially when you have fetch land, since you're able to draw 2 cards a turn extra from just playing a land. Unfortunately those 2 cards weren't enough to save him from getting blasted down by Purphoros, but given a turn or 2 of playing lands, who knows, he might have drawn into something that could have saved him. Harry's Sydri deck was a lot of fun, and I'm really glad to see a paradoxical outcome being resolved in a game. I've loved this card since I saw it printed, but I've never had the right deck to play it in, so I'm glad that Harry was able to do it. He also won with Aetherflux Reservoir, which is one of my favorite win cons, so big thumbs up to him. Please be sure to tune in every Monday and Thursday at 11 AM Eastern Standard Time for a guaranteed new video. You can also follow me on Twitter at MTGMudsta. You can find me on Facebook at facebook.com/mtgmudsta, and lastly, you can check me out when I stream at twitch.tv/mtgmudsta. This video is brought to you in support by my patrons. If you're looking for a way to help out the channel, please be sure to visit the link below. Thank you all for watching this video, and don't forget, friends are just opponents you haven't eliminated yet.